What's up, guys? Episode 5 coming into June now. So, first week of June, we're going to go through all the trades that I took. I took one on EU, one on GU, both Wednesday. It's 3rd to the 7th, I think it was, that week. How are we looking on the accounts? So, obviously, I told you guys I passed phase 2. So, the funded account has been acquired. I didn't know this. If people don't realise it, you actually need to take 5 days of trading on it. So, 5 trading days need to be had for you to get your first withdrawal. So, I've just started placing really small lots. As for the phase 1 I've been looking at playing in for ages, I went down about 7.5%. That's now in about 3% profit. So I've clawed that back, and another win or maybe 2 wins, that's going to get past phase 1. And they're the only accounts I'm trading at the minute alongside phase 1 FTMO. Obviously, once I get into phase 2, I'll look at playing another alpha phase 1. Probably same with FTMO, I might even go for another FTMO. And we're up about 6% on this. So the week was very good. A mixture of wins and losses. So EU played out on both FTMO and Alpha. Alpha stopped me out on GU. FTMO did not stop me out on GU. So you could say overall the GU trade did amount to some profit, but not as much as I wanted. And then EU worked that really well. Most of the profit come from that. And yeah, so just really emphasising the 2 to 3 trades a week, really. Taking trades when they come rather than just be spamming entries and stuff. Allowing myself to put higher risk. On FTMO, I'm about 1.5% risk on each trade. And on Alpha, it's probably looking about 2.4% on phase 1 and then 1.5% on phase 2. So I do drop it a little bit just because, just might as well. I think it just makes me more comfortable. So as much as I want to hammer in, try and go high risk, it really depends on the person. And if you're not the person that can afford multiple accounts, don't go and do that. But I'm really looking forward to this one. What a great opportunity to break down the week we just had there, because it was very interesting. We're going to always start on the DXY. It is the basis, the foundation of how I kind of calibrate my dollar pairs. If we go on the weekly, we can kind of see the level that I emphasised, 104. If we look at how we kind of reacted 3 weeks in a row, we haven't broke that level. That's some significance right there. I also can kind of gauge from that close that it's a doji candle. Indecisiveness is present. We have took the high and took the low, and we failed. So overall, I would prefer sales below 104 with weekly closures, but we like to stay below 104 overall. But I know in my head that if we create a support above here, because generally over the long term, we see the dollar index go up over the long term. So we're going to create new resistances, but generally they're going to be broken and new supports will end up being formed. Once turned resistance and then support. I don't trade support resistance anymore, but when it comes to a key level like this, I'm more looking at, can the candles respect close strong off them, or are they going to break through them? So yeah, it's where I kind of change up my way of trading. I'm somewhat, people would say, liquidity, SMC stuff. Not that I've actually watched any ICT videos at all. It's more off my own analysis and looking at how the candles formed. Are the wicks bigger than the bodies, etc., etc.? Is there a story you can tell from the candles that are forming without having to use crazy concepts that are quite confusing, because a lot of them are. We know then that if we look at this, I'm going to create this as a potential POI obstacle. We come in and fill half. Once we fill half of a wick, I kind of dismiss that wick. And the fair value gap here is probably the best thing I would use here. So we know that we've already come into it before. If we're going to come down, we could fail at this area again. We've got half of it marked in there as well. Only by the faint line, but I like to see half of it sometimes. It's always a good indication. We know that overall this is going to be the liquidity point to want to push down through, because overall, if we can't break that, we're just definitely not going down, are we? We are seeing candles coming down, very weak candle close. Because we took this high, that was the liquidity point of that week we just had there. When we then closed there, with the daily candle closing fairly weak against it, I would say the candle wick bigger than the body, emphasising we have actually failed to break 104 again. Maybe needing to then come and break this wick as a previous weekly high, liquidity, whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, because it's Friday, I'd give it a chance on Monday to see what Monday does. So there's no weekly decisiveness. Daily candle isn't showing me too much. Let's hold off. So any other areas I'd mark up on a daily, I'm quite interested in this wick, to be honest, because I think if price is going to come up, we can come and see price respect 105, come into this wick, and then see us push down. On the weekly there, I don't really favour that as a great order block. I think you could mark it in, but really, I'm quite happy with how that daily looks. I think that looks cleaner. And of course, then we may come up into this higher wick. So it's all to play for, really. But we know that if we see failures to 104, then we're taking out previous weekly high. Vice versa, if we start off and we come down, I'll try and test this low here. But if we start to see candles struggling, we've got to keep in mind that there's 3 weekly failures to that level, suggesting that that could be a bottom wick taking out lows. So you've got a few errors here, previous weekly low. You've got May's low. So there's multiple things, previous monthly low. These are all things you have to weigh up when you're looking at how the week may play out when you haven't got strong weekly confirmations. Now, is this aligning with EU? I would say potentially, yeah, because EU is not looking the cleanest either. I want to emphasize the importance of this liquidity point here on the basis that overall, if this is our area that we wicked up to into this fair value, failed for the second time, took out the bullish candle high, and I see this. Let's mark it out as this area here. This area here is liquidity. So we took this out and we start to push strong to the upside. We've shown some intention. We took out that high. And what have we done since we took out that high? We haven't been able to come up very easily, have we, at all? 3 failures to break that now. I think at the time when you had this candle here, you were given the benefit of the doubt of like the next candle could still push through. We're closing in the weekly. We haven't had a problem at it yet. Then you see the next week, ouch. Now we have a problem. Now we have created a imbalance, well, a fair value gap, I'd say more so, that we can come back into, which we did that week. If we're going to come down and then we're going to tap that, you would expect price on Friday to head up. And that week finished and failed to break the weekly with a consolidation area kind of forming now. So there's not much decision on EU either and decisiveness. I would say best bet is to wait for the dailies to show you more what is actually going on. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, we're looking at overall now us seeing upside. If we are, I mean, this low's looking pretty juicy, to be real. Previous weekly low. And are we going to go up into this liquidity? This is a nice area for a target, to be fair. Are we going to go up into that if we have just seen dailies pretty much fail again after wicking back down into here? So I'd be very cautious for playing buys if we see the week start bullish. Overall bias, I mean, really, I would say there is none. And with the idea of DXY overall, I would like DXY to come down. I would still prefer upside. But if it's not making sense that easily on the weekly, you've really got to pay attention to what do I need to see. Liquidity is the most important thing in the market, in my opinion. It matters more than is price respecting a fair value gap, because that's not actually showing you that much. But we know this area is strong, so we've got to have to keep this weekly in. I think overall, at the highs, we've got, I don't know, you could call this equal highs. It's not the best. This daily area, though, is interesting over here. Before we get to liquidity, we've got a daily wick. I'm interested in that. So let's see how we start the week. That's the best bet. If you're not too confident, which I wasn't, you've got to wait and see what you're feeling from the candles on the daily, on the 4 hour, whatever you prefer. Daily gives me so much. One daily candle can show a lot, and it can really set up the week if you're not too sure on the direction. Should be marking up as a weekly. What do we do on GU then? Because a similar thing happened. We had stacks of liquidity really down here. We took it out and we start to see upside again. And we come into this order block and we failed. We created a pretty significant rejection wick. We've then come up and broke the fair value gap that was just formed there after this week showing some indecisiveness. Then we've seen an order block formed. So there is some momentum to the upside right now. I think based on the candles, you can kind of see that this candle, very strong, took out that high. The next candle didn't come down. Didn't close the strongest, but this week has closed doji, just like DXY. Indecisiveness is present in this pair. There's no weekly obstacles to the left, and that's the hard thing about this one. It was like, all right, looking left, is there anything in the way? Not really. So I'm still more bullish on GU, but I'm already starting to get a clue that, okay, this week, wick down, we didn't tap into the weekly. We then failed to come up. We took the high and closed back below that high of the previous week. Therefore, I'm really eyeing up this area as a potential pullback area, but still haven't seen any rejections to the upside really on GU. You can see here, we haven't tapped into any on the daily. So on the weekly there, more bullish than EU, definitely. But what are the clues on the daily? That's the next time frame down. Investigate. You've really got to put together a kind of, I don't know, analysis. It's always analysis, isn't it? But an investigation is a detailed plan of what's happening. What do you need to see to take your trade? What do you not want to see to get in a certain trade? And what's your overall direction? I would straight up from what we saw in here. We're trending bullish on the daily. We've got this wick. We made a high. This is a high of our leg. So this is quite an important daily. You can see that this was the previous area. We've wicked into half of it. So I take that off. Then I look left again. So this is keeping your charts clean. All right, now this daily is more interesting than the other one because it's higher up. We've had 2 wicks in it already. Failures to even tap half of it. Therefore, this is a very, very interesting area that I'm going to see if price can break. If we break that, that's the high of the previous week. So keeping that in mind as well. And all it takes is a little markup. And it's about putting on what's important. Not every single gap wick is going to be important, but you've got to account for what is. I would also say that probably down here now, you've got equal lows. So I'd mark this up. If we're going to take the equal lows, more than likely we're going to come into the weekly. I'm looking at that as well. So let's see what we can do in this area here. So I'm going to sit out on Monday. I'm going to let price play. All right, pretty crazy because that candle wasn't really expected in my opinion. Looking back now, we had ECB rate, we had NFP. NFP, crazy stuff can happen. Manipulating the market is just what happens on these weeks. You've really got to be one step ahead as a retail trader and looking at what's happening, because if you're not, this is where retail traders in general are looking at sells on DXY and you're starstruck with that candle and you think it's buys, it's buys, it's buys. All right, all of these went a pretty significant day. When we start with DXY, okay, we come down. Maybe we're going to take this low. Maybe we are. But let's remember, if we're going to draw out a bearish overall trend, we're seeing this, right? Where do you want to be selling? Within this area, you want to be selling up here. You've got a low to test. You sell up here, you've got a low to test. You're in the higher area. This gives you a way better position. In regards to your stop loss, you're not going to more than likely get stopped out. Therefore, if you had sells on the break of that previous weekly high, you ran that bad boy down and you made some good profit there. So it's all about, are you now interested in taking a sell on DXY when you're this low? You've had 3 failures to break on the weekly. This candle did a fake out. This candle may do the same. I'm not too sure yet. So I think that's what's more important, is we're seeing some momentum, but we've got to remember that this is the trend, low to high. At the minute, this would be our internal range. We took internal there, and then we took another internal there, our external lows here. Really, we could take that before we go up. We could, and that's what, in terms of the ranges, you'd be looking at. But yeah, we don't know, and we're quite low. So your favoured position is not in there. Your favoured position on EU was down here, and on GU, it was within this wick, and that's the overall play that was just so obvious. And that was it. So buying this high, I'm going to sit out, let Tuesday play. So we're going to see DXY close bullish. We're going to see EU close bearish. And we're going to see GU close bearish. Analysis then for the Tuesday, finishing off, that this candle closed bullish. We actually had an order block here as well. So we've got to remember that. We come into it before, we took the low out, and we've seen a candle close. All right, it's not the best close because the wick's quite big, but the body isn't the smallest. It's not like a rejection. We haven't tapped 104 again and failed. There's room to play up to 104 at least in this moment, and if there's any area to play a buy, it's now. This is where a lot of retail traders are probably scared. You're almost buying in where you feel like price may just continue down, but it's not. If you look at EU, heavily more reliant for my trade based on the ECB rate. Expected to cut rates 4.5 to 4.25. Therefore, we're going to see Euro probably collapse after it being so strong. And we didn't actually see that. We didn't, but that was my idea that helped me take this trade. Between the two, GU looked better. We're going to go into that in a sec. So we see EU. What can we gather? No rejection yet. We've seen a bearish candle. All right, cool. But again, this weekly 3 times failed to break. Are we just in a premium area to catch the sell? Has institutions moved prices to these levels to give us the play for the week? You know what I mean? So where you're now looking at this, you're already kind of spotting the potential play of the bigger players in the market, really. The bigger players in the market are now looking at sells. They're getting in, and you've got to be one step ahead, otherwise you're not going to catch it. So when that candle closes bearish there on EU, I think it's worth a go. There's enough lining up for this. GU looks better. Why does GU look better? Well, okay, we engulf that. We take that out. We took out previous weekly high. We tapped on Tuesday into 50% of the daily after we closed in it. And we closed pretty strong outside of it, showing that this break of the low from Friday to Monday has become current weekly low, and that's become liquidity. Because if we're failing from the start of the week there, I'm expecting minimum that to be taken out. So I am more bearish now on GU. So I'm eyeing up a sell coming into the Wednesday here, and eyeing up a buy on DXY. So how do I look for that? Let's see what the legs are looking like. So I'm always going on the 1 hour, and I'm dissecting, is the leg good? I'm seeing a pretty solid leg. Yep, we are in a bullish leg. I think that's a good thing to point out. But if this is the liquidity and top wick for the week, and that's a strong high, you're not expecting that to get broken, then I'm now trading a sell within this leg to take out this leg. So that's the leg you're not even expecting to hold now. That's where, again, you have to use your fibs to your kind of preference. There's no right or wrong way to draw out the fib. I think in this leg, you could look at this and say, I like this high to this low. I would see a lower high created there, very small. Nice order block formed. I prefer this leg, this high to this low. Makes no difference really overall. Then you see an Asian range, and then you're looking at this area. So you're going to mark up your trade in here. You've got this area as your first POI. Okay, cool. You've got higher ones. I think a really important thing to note again is I said that if we're taking liquidity here, or if this is the high for the week, whatever way you want to look at it, therefore, are we going to need to see a big wick for the day, or are we just going to see that continuation? So I always favour taking a trade at the earliest possible point, as long as I can cover the POIs that are of interest for me, or of what I deem potentially accessible to price if it wants to come up in London / pre-MY. So we're about 20 pips stop here, 21 pips. Now, in terms of the target, if we're looking at the real liquidity point, it's down at the previous weekly low. That didn't happen the same on EU as GU, but current weekly low there, safest bet because of the uncertainty around the weekly. So yeah, still a 3-to-1. I think that's, with all the news, that was probably enough. I think I wasn't the most confident on this setup, but it was a setup to take nonetheless. And just because you're not 100% confident on a setup doesn't mean you shouldn't execute. You've got to put some risk on the table. If I miss these trades, I don't take anything for the week. And as a trader, you have to trade. You know what I mean? So we see price come into that area quite nicely, actually, on the 1 hour. You can see we come in really nicely, and all of a sudden it's looking quite good. But we consolidate, and now it's for this trade to be held over the next day with ECB. As for GU, now GU looked a bit different. This is the first time I've took trades on the medium time frames on EU and GU on the same day. It takes a lot for me to do that. I think they've both got set up pretty good. The leg is only this really on the 1 hour. It's, again, quite a decisive push down. You can see there's obviously been a shift in market. Probably, I wouldn't say it's the strongest because it hasn't took out the leg. We haven't got a definite leg to the downside and a change of, complete change of structure or whatever. But when you create imbalances, then there has been momentum, and you've got to make sure you keep an eye out on that because it's significant. As for GU, it's different because on the same day, we've already come back into the leg. So there's two ways you can look at this. The first one is, this is more recent. I'm going to use this 1 hour POI, and I'm going to get in off that. I'm going to scrap this to the left. Also, this high Failed to take out this low during Asian. We're still not seeing downside. We could, in fact, induce this level. So that's the option there as well. I split my position half and half, probably for the better in the end because of what happened. And yeah, my stop loss overall was around 200, playing down to that previous, current weekly low again. So about 2.8 on that. The higher entry, which I put here, was off the inducement level, and we were looking at about 4.5 off that. Yeah, 4.5 R. So they might both come in, they might not. You can see what happened on this day. As we skip, we did not get tagged into the potential inducement level, and the alerts were going off at 5 PM, and that was me done. Calling that a day then. It's closed bullish on GU. All right, cool. I'm still interested in the overall sell until the leg's broken. I'm going to hold the trade. You can see that we had a bearish close there, so it's looking better on EU, and obviously DXY retested 104. So going into Thursday, with that candle being bullish and strong, I expect more upside, I expect more downside, but I can't really trade this next day. I'm in positions. The day is of the rate on Thursday. Let me just sit out. I'm in two good positions if they play out. So we let ourselves sit on Thursday. We in fact come deeper into this 1 hour, and we ended up seeing the rate do this. Absolute horrible price action there. Not the best at all. As for GU though, we can look at that inducement level and see that it got taken, and we took it, and we come into the higher POI. So I wouldn't have been looking for an entry on that day because the candle closed bullish on the daily, but you can see that it did end up coming higher. But you don't have to have a perfect entry. It's not about that. You'll see that my trades are 2 to 5R generally, and not being perfect, just choose a level to get in off and hold the trade. And sometimes that's better than trying to be perfect, because you'll miss so many entries trying to do that. Right, Thursday close wasn't good on DXY. I wasn't really liking how it closed because it closed bearish, and are we retesting 104 to continue downside? But it didn't really make much sense that this was enough to see further pushes. It's very weird price action there, quite slow. And of course, why would we push down so quickly on Monday and then just trickle? It doesn't really make sense. So that's what I did like about this trade, to be honest. EU's not looking great going into Friday morning, but this is another thing. Like, don't just think that because your trade doesn't look good that you're not going to hold it, because the reason why you took trade in the first place was because you were confident on it, and until that leg's broken, you can't look and go, I'm not really liking this trade anymore. Well, yeah, until that's taken out, I'm liking it. I may think otherwise looking at the chart, but I spent years failing trading because of that exact reason, to be honest. Keep that in mind. Going to Friday, we saw... Now, this is what I liked on GU, because we took out that high in that inducement, and we never really come back up. This daily area, not only... Now we've filled half of it. I actually took that off, keeping that rule, and I marked in this. So Thursday tapped into that and reacted off it. You can see there, we tapped it and reacted off it. So I was already kind of thinking, oh, this is potential failure here. Indecisive doji candle. There's an opportunity to win. But let's just skip Friday so you'll be able to see what happened as we go into the day. Boom. You know, just completely went with the news. Sometimes on Fridays you just got to accept that news is going to move the market for the whole week, and that's what it done. My bad. Corrected all of Monday's play where better entries were, and if you look for buys anywhere in here, you got completely shagged, and that's where, just I said it again, being ahead of the market, one step ahead, having that intuition to play that move. And G didn't really play out, and I said on my alpha it just took me out with overall spread. FTMO didn't, but you can see it was by fine margins. I got slipped about 5 pips, and in fact managed to close out the end of the week with about 2R profit. Because of that loss, I deemed my trades to actually be invalid, and I just said if I've took the loss on one of the accounts and I'm up 2R on the other account, I think I'd find it difficult to try and hold to that low, even though I'm expecting it to go there, just off purely the basis of, in my actual data sheet for the year, this trade's a loss. So I'm kind of holding a trade in a challenge that I can just secure and bag up, be done for the week. which is obviously was the same as EU. Managed to make some good profit on EU. So overall up about 5R for June. Took 2 trades. I'm not going to jinx it. I can't have a losing month now. And setting myself up within like a 4 winning streak now, going into actually the actual funded account where I'm looking to trade it. So what's the questions that people might have? Risk, 0.5 on the actual funded account. I may increase the risk as I get more funded capital, but for the minute, 0.5 is fine. 1% I think I would have on a few accounts, as long as I'd be happy going to drawdown on them and accepting that I may have to go and do another challenge to get the capital back if I were to lose the account. But from what I've been trading, you can see I'm not having massive losing streaks. I'm not losing 5 trades in a row, so 1% risk, 10% drawdown. Doesn't really make sense that I'd blow the account. At the end of the day, I want to maximise the prop firm as much as possible for what it can give me. And yeah, now's the time to really start proving what I can do. I spoke about what my plans were, and hopefully you can start rolling out these videos very, very soon, within June. I just need to get that first payout, and I reckon I'll be rolling these videos out and showing the process. And yep, it might get hard at some points, but week in, week out now, I'm making good decisions in the market. I'm understanding EU and GU more. I've been doing this learning-wise for like 4 months now on these pairs. Getting to grips with them a little bit more. Sometimes they don't move the cleanest. I'm getting more familiar with news events for the Euro and USD. And generally, don't be scared of news events. You can see there, people may say you got lucky with news. I don't see that from the perspective that every time I've took trades off solid ideas, 75% of the time, they win with news because you're going with the market direction overall. Also, the times they do lose relatively are usually with wicks like that. So take that how you want to. I wouldn't be scared of the news at all. I think it's a great tool to help you out. And in fact, news and fundamentals drive the market really. So you're seeing the pushes with news. And if it wasn't for news, you probably wouldn't have had this big push up to start the week. So everything was based on what happened there to start the week. And really look at the weeks there that don't have solid options for higher time frame players positions or solid confirms and you're a bit unsure. Just knock it down a time frame. Daily's not looking clear, knock it down to the 4 hour. There you can just build a picture on a certain time frame. As long as you're not going too low, you'll figure out what's going on. And yeah, I'm not necessarily an advocate for lower time frames. It didn't work for me. But if you trade that way and you're not finding much going on in the 15 minute, drop it down one, because you're probably going to find more information on the time frames as you go down. A lot more to digest and figure out. And if that helps you, great. Some people like to stick to a few time frames. You can see the ones I've got up here are a few. And that's it. But that's it. Just quick. Didn't show you the DXY closed there on the Friday. Done that. Took out the liquidity low. And then we went this direction. So we did need to take this out to potentially finish our pullback there. This pullback was a slow burner. Very, very long time after we made this high. We took out the low. And that may indicate we're going to come back up and push up. So next week, we're looking at downside on these. And let's see what it can bring. But yeah, challenges are up and running. Funded is there. I'm sure we'll do well next week. But good luck, guys. Take care. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.